I'd like to call this hearing of the Joint Committee on Emergency Preparedness and Management to order. As a sign of respect, I'd like to call up Senator Peter Durant, who will testify on Senate 539. Senator?
A sign of respect. I'm impressed. I like that. I don't get that often. Thank you, Chair Altrino and Chair Cronin, for taking me out of turn. Members of the committee, I'm here today in support of Senate Bill 539, which is an act prohibiting COVID-19 mRNA vaccination and gene-altering procedures as a condition of entry. Ladies and gentlemen, this bill is about one simple principle, and that is making sure that we learn from the past. We must ensure that future government responses never again prevent people from living, working, worshiping, and taking part in their own communities. We all remember what happened during COVID. It wasn't that long ago, less than 5 years ago. We remember that small businesses were forced to close, many for good. Churches locked their doors while liquor stores stayed open. Citizens were told that they couldn't enter their own schools, town halls, restaurants, unless they carried a vaccination card. We were told that these measures would stop the spread, right? 15 days to flatten the curve. We were told that vaccination would stop COVID-19 dead in its tracks. But we know now, we knew later on during the pandemic, even though we may have suspected earlier, that that just wasn't true. That you can't fully contain any virus that spreads so easily. Even the most vaccinated communities and, dare I say, countries always saw transmission. The mandates that we implemented did not bring people together, they divided them. They created a two-tiered society based not on health outcomes, but on compliance. Just this past weekend, we all saw the videos from around the country when we had No Kings rallies, not just here in Massachusetts, but around the nation. And that's a reminder that our government is meant to serve, not to rule. Decisions made during the pandemic often carried an air of control, and I would argue, in some instances, authoritarianism, that felt far removed from the principles of self-government and the individual freedoms that define this nation. Now, let's be clear. This bill doesn't tell anyone what to do with their health. It simply says that your private medical decisions are your business, not the government's. What we lived through was an unprecedented expansion of government power, a test of how far officials could go, how much people would tolerate, and how easily the word emergency could be used to justify sweeping restrictions. Not the first time, and I hate to say not the last, but this can't happen again, not in Massachusetts and not anywhere in America. S539 is very straightforward. It does not, let me repeat, it does not ban vaccinations. It doesn't tell anyone what to believe. It simply reaffirms that no one should have to show personal medical papers to go about their daily lives. It's about drawing a clear line between public safety and personal liberty. Because when government starts deciding who can enter a church, who can work, who can sit down at a restaurant, we've gone too far. We can protect public health without punishing people for their choices. We can prepare for emergencies without surrendering the rights that define who we are. I ask the committee to favorably report S539, and I'm happy to take any questions that the committee may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator, for your testimony. Does anyone on the committee have any questions for the Senator? Representative Swartz.
Senator, thank you so much for coming in to speak on your bill. I'm just curious, you mentioned a couple times the overreach that you say occurred. And as someone who treated COVID-19 patients in the hospital when the crisis was, we didn't have a vaccine, and people were piling up in parking lots outside of New York hospitals, are you implying, or are you even claiming that there was no emergency at that time?
No, in fact, I think that there was an emergency. And I think
Because
that
I think
beginning of this, in the beginning of the pandemic, we didn't know what we didn't know, right? And so we took what were probably then decided as reasonable steps, 15 days to flatten the curve. Let's try to curb transmission. I don't think it's a stretch to say that quickly we realized, A, they weren't going to work. And I don't see how we have viruses every flu season, right? Cold and flu season. People get sick all the time. We don't try to stop the rhinovirus. We try to stop transmission of the flu that comes up, what strain we think is going to come up this year. So I think in the beginning, we tried to take reasonable steps. My belief is that at some point, and we can argue about where that took place, but at some point, they went too far. Why it was that we could go to a restaurant and you could take your mask off when you sat down, but not when you stood up. That a liquor store could open, but a gym couldn't open. Things like that, that's where we started to cross the line between what made for reasonable policy versus what made authoritarian policy.
Mr. Chair, if I could follow up.
Sure.
So with all due respect, I do, the only reason why I'm speaking to this right now is that whether or not your legislation is wise is a different question, I think. But I do object to the 2020 hindsight that we're all giving to the COVID crisis. And this is a committee on emergency preparedness. So I think it is really relevant that we appreciate that at the time of an emergency, we often don't have that 2020 vision. So I'm just concerned that your bill, it sounds like you're saying that government should never have the ability to require things like vaccination or quarantine. Is that your testimony today?
Yeah, so no, it's actually very clear that we don't believe that you should require vaccinations.
Ever?
In my personal opinion, no.
Okay.
In the opinion of this bill, it's the purpose of this bill is that you cannot require vaccination to get into a public venue. So, for example, right, one of the issues that came up during that period, we had an election that was taking place, right? It was 2020 when the lockdowns had started. People hadn't gotten vaccinated yet, but you needed a vaccination card to come into the State House here where there are polling places. So in theory, now we had to make a special rule so that you could do that if you weren't vaccinated. We weren't going to check those cards, but in theory, we are now preventing people from exercising their right to vote. I just don't believe that that is an appropriate measure that we need to take, especially given, and again, I don't think we want to get into, I'm happy to do it, but I don't think we should get into we can get into a big conversation about vaccinations in general. But I think the argument was, if the vaccination is to stop the spread, and that was the initial thought, right? Is that I remember like it was yesterday, Dr. Fauci saying it stops the spread dead in its tracks, stops the virus dead in its tracks. Now we know further on that wasn't true. We can argue or not whether it was malicious or not. But if that was the case, and if that is the case, for example, polio vaccination, right? Extremely effective. But if I'm vaccinated and I've taken every step that I can take, then why should I be worried about somebody who's not? If I'm vaccinated against polio and you're not and you have polio, again, that's a vaccination that is perfectly fine. I don't have to worry about it. So those are the kind of things that I think that we have to be very careful of.
I mean, I think we can leave the vaccination against polio to the Public Health Committee. I'm just questioning your rationale for limiting in the moment of an emergency without, and it sounds like you expect there to be pure knowledge of how things are going to play out, which is not going to be the case. If anybody is looking at it realistically, then you're saying that the government should not have the ability to require anything like vaccination.
I would argue that, correct.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
And that's perfectly fine, but and I would just also argue that, look, I do think that you're right. And again, at that time, we didn't know what we didn't know, right? So, but now we do have that hindsight. And the idea of this bill is to learn from what it is that we found out over that time and try not to make the same mistakes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions for the senator? No. Thank you for your time, Senator.
Thank you, Chair.
Have a great day.
Good morning. Thank you to the committee. My name is Julie Boris. I'm one of the co-founders of Health Rights Mass, and I'm here to testify on behalf of thousands of Massachusetts residents in support of S539. This bill would protect Massachusetts residents from being forced to receive a COVID-19 vaccine, mRNA vaccine, or gene-altering procedure as a condition of entry into the Commonwealth, attendance in school, entry in public buildings or businesses, or access to employment, even in the event of a declared public health emergency. This bill is critical to ensure the injustices of the COVID era can never happen again. But this is not just about the past. Right now, today in 2025, healthcare workers and college students who need to complete clinical rotations in order to graduate are still being required to get COVID-19 mRNA shots. Over the past 5 years, we've continued to witness the devastation caused by this misguided public health policy. Many people lost their jobs, careers were cut short, retirement accounts vanished, and educational opportunities denied. And so much injury and death from the liability-free COVID-19 injections, which, as we know now and can prove, are contaminated with DNA plasmids and SV40 cancer-linked sequences. In 2023, we invited you all to the Faces of Vaccine Injury right here in the Nurses Hall, where the people of Massachusetts stepped up to the mic for over 2 hours and shared their stories. And we published a book. Here it is. I will submit it. Faces of Vaccine Injury Massachusetts, and delivered it to every legislative office. And in 2024, we invited you again to the COVID-19 vaccine expert panel briefing for legislators and public health officials, where we heard from doctors and scientists and experts who were not funded by the medical industrial complex, warning of the harms they were seeing in the real world. And just a few weeks ago, we invited you to the Faces of Vaccine Injury 2025, again for more than 2 hours, stories of injury and harm. I'm going to submit all 7 hours on a zip drive that I have right here, a thumb drive, so that you can have access to that. This legislative body gave away its power a long time ago to the Department of Public Health and to the governor, which led to the sweeping emergency decrees like Executive Order 595. And that was a mistake. You, the legislators, are supposed to be the checks and balances. It's time to take back your power and rein in an agency that has grown out of control, and it's doing more harm than good. If we don't act now, this could happen again. There are many more mRNA vaccines in the pipeline, and how many shots are you willing to take? 5, 10, 20? And what point will you say no? And when the law fails to protect you or your family, what are you going to do? For me and many others in the Commonwealth, the number we will take is 0. So I urge you to support S539 and to protect the people of Massachusetts from further harm. Thank you so much.
No, thank you very much for taking time to testify today. Anyone here on the committee have any questions?
Good afternoon, chairs and members of the committee. I am Mary Kelly Sutton, board certified in internal medicine with additional training in pediatrics and more than 40 years of clinical experience. I'm here in strong support of S539, an act prohibiting COVID-19 mRNA vaccination and gene-altering procedures as a condition of entry. I speak not only as a physician, but as someone who has watched the integrity of medical science erode in real time. Medicine and the research that should guide it are in a deeply troubled state, and there has been no honest self-examination since the COVID-19 event. Today, doctors are routinely threatened with losing their jobs for telling the truth. In the new film, An Inconvenient Study, we saw a prime example. A head of infectious disease who refused to publish accurate outcome data, not because it was incorrect, but because telling the truth would cost him his job. When job security overrides scientific truth, we no longer have science. We have propaganda. The COVID shot is an offspring of this activity. It should never have been rushed under political pressure. Trials were incomplete, statistics were manipulated, and risks were hidden. We now face serious consequences about women's health, pregnancy outcomes, and the discovery of ingredients such as SV40 and DNA plasmids never disclosed to patients nor fully studied. Meanwhile, we are seeing increases in kidney failure, clotting disorders, myocarditis, and aggressive turbo cancers, yet these signals are being dismissed instead of investigated. If informed consent still existed in medicine, patients would have been told these risks before any shot, and certainly before any mandate. Instead, patients were denied information Doctors were silenced, and dissent was punished. No ethical profession behaves this way. At a minimum, COVID shot requirements should be paused until we conduct a full and honest medical debriefing. S539 is a necessary step toward restoring ethics. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Anyone here have any questions? And first, I want to welcome Representative Scanlon, but you also want to make a comment, a question?
Well, it's good to see you, Dr. Sutton. I don't know if you can hear me or see me, but it's Adam. How are you? It's always fun to have a constituent come in and testify, so hope you have a great day.
Okay, thank you, Representative. Anyone else? Senator?
Just have a quick question. I'm not sure if you'd be able to answer it, but we know that childhood vaccinations, flu vaccinations, all types of vaccinations, not necessarily just mRNA or COVID-related, have risks, and that there's a certain segment of the population that is going to have some type of really adverse reaction or even die. Do we have a comparison about it yet? Because I don't know. Do we have a comparison yet between these COVID vaccinations and the rate of harm and deaths compared to the other vaccinations? Where can we, are you coming up at some point to testify? You have that. Okay, great.
Are you
Great.
asking me?
Yes.
Oh, I have seen a statement, though I can't give you the reference, that the COVID VAERS reports were greater than all combined adverse events from vaccines from the beginning of the VAERS system. So the COVID reactions are vastly worse than all combined prior vaccine adverse events.
So I'm really talking about severe reactions, life-altering and death. Okay, that's where I am. I think it probably, most of the population could have some type of reaction to a vaccine. I do. But I'm just looking at that really catastrophic. Okay, you have that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Anyone else? Thank you very much for your testimony, Doctor. Have a good day. Next up is Jackie Fashijan. Say that again? It's Fashion, I'm sorry. Thank you. No, I apologize. It's a hard one. Yep. And you have 3 minutes, and the time is in front of you, I believe. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jackie Fashion, and I'm testifying in strong support of Bill S539. I don't believe that the government should ever have the power to dictate what gets injected into our own bodies as a condition to go to work or school, especially when it's an experimental new technology, mRNA drug, that was rushed through the usual safety testing process, excuse me, and offers no manufacturer liability should something go wrong. My entire family got COVID, the first and only time before we were even eligible to get the vaccine. As time passed, we decided to get antibody testing before making any decisions. Our antibodies were still strong over a year later. Given that, as well as our strong religious beliefs, we decided against it. Ooh, sorry, I'm nervous. During that period of time, we watched our fully vaccinated extended family and friends contract COVID over and over again. We realized, along with the rest of the world, that this vaccine did not stop transmission or spread. At that point, we knew we made the right decision. Then came the coercion, blackmail, and bribery. Get the vaccine and receive a free gift card or a burger or a lottery ticket. Don't get the vaccine and get ostracized, lose your job, or get kicked out of school. At one point, my entire family couldn't even go into any public venue in Boston because we couldn't show our proof of vaccination papers. We were treated like lepers, even though it was crystal clear that it didn't stop transmission or spread. Thankfully, Mayor Wu was forced to drop that mandate due to it being a clear violation of our civil rights. Looking back now, everything during that time was so nonsensical. Mandatory masks to enter a restaurant, but once you sit down, go ahead, take it off. You can't get COVID if you're seated, apparently. Can't get on a plane without your mask, but as soon as you're eating peanuts, suddenly there's no risk of spread. And don't forget to follow those arrows in the supermarket. I mean, ridiculous. Small family-owned businesses getting forced to close while all the big box stores stayed open. Loved ones dying alone in hospitals and nursing homes, no weddings, no funerals. My daughter was forced to drop out of college and put her life and career on hold. She is now 25 and still taking classes to finish getting her degree while working full-time. One of my best friends was a nurse at UMass. Her husband was a corrections officer. They have 3 small children. They both lost their jobs for not complying to the COVID vaccine mandate. They are still financially struggling today and have lawsuits. I also have countless stories of COVID vaccine injuries that I don't have time to share, but I would encourage you to watch Faces of Vaccine Injury that was filmed right here at the State House, thanks to Health Rights MA. The stories are heartbreaking. Please put your full support behind this bill to ensure that something like this never happens again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. See, nothing to be nervous about. Yeah, great job. Anyone have any questions or comments? Yes, Senator.
So I know you had made a statement, so I'm just trying to clarify it for me. My understanding is that for those who chose to get COVID vaccinated, it was not to prevent getting COVID. It was to prevent dying from COVID.
No.
Okay, that's my understanding.
In the beginning, actually, there's tons of clips of Joe Biden, Fauci, Rachel Maddow, all sorts of media people saying, if you get the vaccination, this COVID-19 stops dead in its tracks. There are so many clips you can find of them all claiming.
Yeah, I don't read clip. I don't follow clips. I actually want to look at
I lived through it.
I just want to look at the science.
Well, I know, but I
So
lived through it, and I
can
didn't
look-
get vaccinated,
yeah.
and I
not
saw
challenge-
it.
I'm not challenging you. I'm just, my understanding, I read the science. I don't follow media or anything
But
like
you just
that.
said, I'm sorry, but maybe I'm misunderstanding
Sure.
you, but I thought you had just said that it never claimed to stop transmission or spread. That is outright.
From the science that I've read. That's what
I'm talking about what the world was told for the first at least year.
Again, I base it on fact and science. That's how we
Were
actually
you
make
around
decisions.
though in the first year when it came out?
And I
Did
got
you
ca-
hear what they were telling
and
us
I
on
did
the
get
news?
COVID before a vaccine came out. Yeah.
I'm
And
saying
I've had it 3 times
they
since.
were wrong.
I'm not here to challenge you. I'm just saying that
you're
I've
not challenging me. You're
Yeah.
challenging them.
Okay, well, I base it on the science and the facts.
I know.
So, yeah.
Trust the science, follow the science, and that's what we all tried to do until we figured out that
Again,
the science is
not
always
trying to-
evolving and it's never
Not trying
settled.
to challenge you. I'm just,
You're asking me a question I'm trying to answer, but you're not letting me.
No, you did answer it, but thank you so
Okay.
much.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Anything else?
Thank you, Senator. Not seeing any other questions. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Next up is Sharon Cintolo or Chintolo? Chintolo. I had a friend with Cintolo. Yeah, thank you. Welcome, and you have 3 minutes.
Okay. So my name is Sharon Cintolo. I'm here to urge your support for Bill 5, S539. I served as a dedicated healthcare worker for over 35 years in the front lines in hospitals and on ambulances. My story is not unique. It's shared by thousands of my colleagues across the country. When COVID-19 first hit our shores in 2020, no one knew what to expect. As a healthcare worker, I had no choice but to show up day after day. I donned my PPE and we hope for the best. I risked my health and my family's well-being to care for the sick, and I supported my fellow co-workers who were burning out under the strain. We were hailed as heroes then, essential to the fight against COVID. But fast forward, after we adapted, learned, and sacrificed so much, suddenly the narrative shifted. Employers, under pressure from government guidelines, began mandating the COVID-19 vaccine. I was told point blank, get the shot or lose your job. It wasn't just a suggestion, it was a threat to my livelihood, my ability to provide for my family. And as someone with deeply held religious beliefs, I filed for a religious exemption, a process that should protect our constitutional rights under the First Amendment and Title VII under the Civil Rights Act. But instead of prompt resolution, I was held in limbo for months, just wondering if I was going to be terminated. In the end, my primary employer granted my exemption. I kept my full-time job. I consider myself lucky because most other people weren't granted that. I did lose a part-time position at another facility because they outright rejected my exemption. No discussion, no appeal, just like that, source of income gone. forcing me to scramble to stretch my finances thinner. But I knew I wasn't alone. Many were fired or forced to resign, exacerbating staffing shortages that already plagued our healthcare system. We've seen emergency rooms overwhelmed, wait times skyrocket, and patient care suffer. What stings the most is the hypocrisy. After 2 years of thanks for your service, we were told that our dedication meant nothing if we didn't comply with the vaccine that, based on emerging data, has proven neither safe nor entirely effective against the virus. Mandates like these don't just affect individuals. They erode trust in our institutions. They divide communities, pitting workers against employees, governments against citizens. In healthcare, where burnout and shortages were already epidemic before COVID, these policies have only worsened the crisis. We've lost talented professionals who could still be saving lives today, all because of one-size-fits-all approach that fails to respect the personal choice and religious freedoms. I urge this committee to support Bill S539. Our healthcare system and the people of power deserve better. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? And go right ahead.
Good afternoon, committee members. Yeah, thank you for the time you giving me here. April 4th, 2021, my wife, age 30, suddenly and tragically passed away of a pulmonary embolism. It was the worst day of my life, not one I'm going to forget. I was awoken early in the wee hours Easter morning and heard a noise, thought she was choking, found out later it was a death rattle, didn't even occur to me at the time. It was a devastating day. I was able to awaken her twice while the ambulance was on the way. She was taken away in the ambulance, taken to the hospital. I wasn't even allowed to go into the hospital initially, but once I was able to go in, the doctor took me to a side room and told me that at this point her brain had been starved of oxygen so long that even if they were able to restart her heart, there wouldn't be much of her left. And it's hard to even describe what that feels like. I remember feeling like I was sinking into my shoes. It was a horrible day. It was about 6 weeks after she took the COVID vaccine. According to her, her job compelled her to get it in order to continue working there. However, frankly, she would have gotten it anyway. She was somebody who was a giver, a helper, and she thought she was doing the right thing by getting the vaccine, trying to help other people. I feel as though she was very much led astray. The doctor said that, of course, we asked if it was vaccine related because it was so close. She said that based on the data, she couldn't conclude that. However, she described what occurred to a 30-year-old healthy female as, quote, 1 in a trillion chances of happening. So we were left with questions with no answers as to what happened. So because she was such a helper, since she passed, I've really dedicated my life to giving back in her stead, trying to carry that forward. I work with children for my career, and which, depending on the day, can be very challenging or very fun. But I'm in the business of earning trust, and I can say very concretely that trust is earned, not compelled. And what this bill is about is just avoiding that, compelling people to do things. So I encourage you to vote on this bill. It has my full support, obviously, happy to take any questions.
Well, thank you for your testimony, and I do apologize and for your loss, and you're you're in my prayers as well, and it must be very difficult to testify after that situation. But does anyone here have any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Representative Turk.
I just want to thank you for sharing your very personal story with us. It's a reminder to all of us of how bad some of the decision-making was. You know, I don't question the motives of some of these people that made the decisions, but some of the decisions that were made during the COVID pandemic, I think history will not judge kindly how we responded to it, how we destroyed people's freedom, destroyed people's health with this, and gave blanket immunity to people that, you know, made tons of money off of it. So thank you for sharing your story. It's very, very powerful.
If I can respond to that?
Sure, go ahead.
Just, thank you for that, I appreciate it, and it really is just about trust. I mean, I truthfully lost faith in the system that day, and I don't want that to be the case. I want to have trust, I want to have faith, I want this to be the way it's supposed to be in America, free to make our own decisions, free to analyze the data ourselves.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? All right. Thank you for your testimony. Have a good day. Joy Rio, welcome, and go right ahead.
Members of the committee, I appreciate this opportunity to express my strong support for Bill S539. And during the pandemic, as you've heard from other people before me, healthcare workers were one segment of the population that were particularly subjected to the mandates for work. Also, nursing and medical students, to do their clinical training, were required to get a COVID vaccine to work in their field. It's shocking to me that these mandates are still in place anywhere, despite the fact that COVID-19 vaccines don't even prevent infection or transmission. Thousands of healthcare workers and students applied for religious or medical exemptions. Most were unfairly denied. And as a result, thousands were fired or voluntarily left their jobs or put their medical training on hold. They have suffered tremendous financial and reputational losses. Of course, that combination of firings and resignations has significantly reduced the size of the healthcare workforce. Those healthcare workers who remain have heavier, more stressful workloads, and healthcare facilities have less capacity to deliver timely and effective healthcare for their patients. But healthcare workers certainly aren't the only ones affected by mandates. Many of my friends are professional musicians who, even though they are freelancers or contract workers, many were required and may still be required to get COVID-19 vaccinations to perform or teach music in most venues. They felt they had no choice because performing and teaching music is the only way they make an income. And by the way, I know of a fellow musician who died suddenly and unexpectedly within 24 hours of getting his first COVID vaccine in March of 2021. Vaccine mandates also impact higher education. How many students, administrators, faculty across the Commonwealth were subjected to vaccine mandates? Until very recently, millions of people in that industry. mRNA technology is still in its experimental phase. The CDC VAERS database, which you'll hear about shortly from fellow allies, is widely acknowledged to contain only a small fraction of adverse events. Yet it contains over 38,000 reported deaths from COVID vaccines. Deaths, many more disabilities, many more hospitalizations. Furthermore, scientists, of course, still don't know what vaccine side effects may occur in 5, 10, or 20 years from now. Any mandate for medical procedures or products violates the principles of bodily autonomy, informed consent, and respect for individual freedom. Health decisions, especially those involving medical procedures, should be personal choices made with one's doctor and based on individual circumstances and beliefs. The ethical and moral choice for every legislator here should be obvious. Please support Bill S539.
Thank you for your testimony. Anyone have any questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you for your time. Next up is Matthew Richer. I don't believe they checked in, but just one last shout out. Nope. Okay, going next to Susan Milliken. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
listening to me today. I am Dr. Susan Milliken. I'm a physician here in Massachusetts with an active license. I come in to support the S539. I am here today to implore you to consider this bill because it is an infringement not only on medical personnel to treat and care for people, but also to our citizens. I think a lot of things were not done properly, but we didn't ever have this in our history. And I think a lot of people, because of the good vaccinations we have had in our history, as soon as they heard that they had a vaccination to be given, they automatically felt that it would be safe. Healthy childhood children do not need to have a mandated status for this vaccination at all. In the CDC charts as of 1/19/25, the charts that they have according to age group, there are no excess deaths from COVID in anyone less than 15 years of age. So what does excess deaths mean? It means that these are over and above what is statistically predicted. And we have very good numbers on that. For a good example, historic baseline of cardiac deaths in young athletes is only 5 or 8 a year, and that's been going on prior to 2019. In the vaccinated athletes between 2021 and 2023, post-vaccination skyrocketed to 2,111 cases with 1,483 deaths. These are kids. This is unconscionable that this was going on, and nobody reported it. I have this in literature, and I will send it to you as we depart. There was a study in England that showed a 47% increase in pulmonary embolism across all age groups. This was well known. Autoimmune disease rates increased due to vaccination spike protein that was made by our own cells. And then, unfortunately, we found much later that it penetrated all organs of the body, including the ovaries. Turbo cancers of colon, breast, lung, and blood are all high in that same group. As immunity builds in a population, even people that get it sometimes don't present symptoms. They would never get tested. So even though we did a good job of testing everyone, there's still some out there.
If you just don't mind wrapping up?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I wanted to make one note, too, that's
Yep.
something that I will put in my information. The Great Barrington Declaration was signed by Dr. Bhattacharya, who is now our NIH director. And I do want you to know he is a true scientist. He signed with 941,000 other doctors worldwide to help with this whole problem. And that was published in 10 of 2020, but that was only after he was not heard by Dr. Fauci.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, just one comment, Doctor. Thank you for your testimony. Just, and only because you talked about excess deaths. You know, the CD, and I haven't looked at this data beyond the point I'm going to reference, but from January 4th, 2020 till October 16th, 2021, so almost 2 full years, cohort, if I recall correctly, was 73.8 million people under the age of 18. Total numbers of deaths during that almost 2-year period for people ages 5 to 18 were 442 COVID-related. 0 to 4 was 195. Bring that up saying that less than, so approximately 637 deaths were attributed to COVID during that nearly 2-year period on a 73.8 million person cohort. And the typical expected death was over 10,000. And so I just say that because I think the numbers back up what you're saying, which completely back it up. And as I recall, I believe it's statistically true that you had a greater likelihood of dying. A kid under 18 had a greater likelihood of dying of a lightning strike than they did of COVID during that nearly 2-year period.
The
So
study
thank you for your testimony.
You're welcome. The study in Israel is very rock solid because they keep track of their entire population. They had better numbers than the United States because of the unfortunate hospital trying to get more COVID dollars, and the more they diagnosed COVID cases, unfortunately, so everybody who had a positive swab was automatically dying of COVID.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, please.
Representative.
Yes. Doctor, please. That's all right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. You are in favor of this bill, correct?
Absolutely.
Why would people not be?
I think, as I mentioned, that vaccinations in this country have been stellar. Why were they stellar? This is to, I'm sorry, I don't know your last name, Lovely, is that right? Question. We had great faith in our vaccinations here in the United States. I mean, we're kind of king, right? We give it to the rest of the world. But those are traditional vaccinations. This is a messenger RNA that's never been tried. It was too rapidly brought forward. They knew complications because they hadn't even done the number necessary for a scientific study to make sure that these were even reasonably safe. It didn't even happen. It was just railroaded right through. And this is the mess we have now. And so that's the problem. Fear shouldn't drive medicine. Fear should not. There are strict rules. Talk to Dr. Bhattacharya. He's going to show us the way. Please back him up in every way you can, because he's right. He will be right.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Thank you for your time. Next person to speak is Anne Marie Cromwick. Go right ahead and welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Anne Marie Cromwick. I'm a lifelong resident of Massachusetts, and I currently live in Saugus. I have a doctorate in polymer chemistry, and for part of my career, I worked in the pharmaceutical industry. I'm here today to testify in support of Senate Bill S539. Shortly after the COVID vaccines became available, members of my family and I decided not to take the experimental mRNA shot. In the fall of 2021, several members of my family were mandated to get the shot. My son-in-law was denied a religious exemption and lost his job here in Massachusetts. The administrators at my son's college, also in Massachusetts, denied both a religious and medical exemption. Despite my son having had COVID and he had natural immunity, he had to drop out his senior year in college. As I reflect on our experiences, I'm angry thinking about this period in our lives. We were denied access to education, to attend events happening in Boston, to simply work and to live freely because we refused to comply with an unwanted medical intervention. There are three primary issues at the root of my anger. There are risks associated with mRNA vaccines, and they were completely dismissed with the messaging of them being safe and effective. The denial of medical freedom, the ability to make a decision based on one's personal risk-benefit assessment was stripped away from us. And then thirdly, there's a censorship. We were not allowed to question any of it. So let's discuss the risks of mRNA vaccines. I was not an anti-vaxxer. The primary reason for my not wanting to take the mRNA vaccine was simply, it was not safe enough for me. As I mentioned, I have a PhD in chemistry, and although I'm not an expert in immunology, I had strong reservations about injecting foreign genetic material into my body, especially encapsulated inside lipid nanoparticles. These types of particles are designed to penetrate cell membranes and can even cross the blood-brain barrier. They can go everywhere in your body. Once these particles enter the cells, the foreign mRNA material tricks the cells to manufacture a foreign protein. I know enough about immunology to be concerned about the potential for autoimmune responses, and I'm not speaking just about the generation of antibodies to a foreign protein, but about the potential to develop an autoimmune disease whereby the body attacks its own tissues and organs. I will be submitting documents to support this, including biodistribution of lipid nanoparticles from the Moderna vaccine, showing bioaccumulation in the ovaries and uterus. The risks of mRNA vaccines are far greater than we were initially led to believe. I end by asking you all to reflect on what we all have been through with the COVID response, including yourselves. We got to experience what it would be like to live in a tyrannical society where participation was contingent on the coercion to receive an mRNA injection. Our elected officials have the duty to protect our rights. The freedom to make our own medical choices is paramount. Please prevent this from ever happening again and support S539.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions or comments from the committee? And seeing none, we thank you for your time. David Cromwick.
Good afternoon. Chairs, members of the committee. My name is David Cromwick. I'm here in support of Bill S539, an act prohibiting COVID mRNA vaccination and gene-altering procedures as a condition of entry. No person in Massachusetts should ever again be forced to take a medical product in order to work, attend school, access services, or participate in public life. What we lived through during COVID must never be repeated, not legally, not ethically, not medically. This bill does not ban vaccines, it protects consent and ensures that during future emergencies, the government cannot coerce, threaten, segregate, or exclude people based on private medical decisions. To understand why this protection is urgently needed, I will point to government data itself. This is a VIA's database, and everyone on the committee should be aware of this. And I'm a data-driven guy, so I just want to mention I'm an engineer by trade. I worked in the medical device industry my whole life, including the Food and Drug Administration. So I'm not going to cover every chart, but just a couple. Chart 1 talks about adverse events. There are more adverse events associated and attributed to the COVID vaccine, over 1 million, than all the adverse attributed to all of the vaccines in the VIA's database going back to 1990. That's data. Number 2, deaths. Over 30,000 plus deaths attributed to the COVID vaccine, more than all deaths attributed to all other vaccines in the VIA's database going back to 1990. Myocarditis spikes, chart 4. There was a surge in myocarditis with the COVID vaccine and permanently injuring young people who previously were healthy. These are young males in general. 73,000, chart 6, 73,000 plus child reports where the idea of a child even getting COVID and getting sick is remote. Permanent disability, chart 8. 3-to-1 graphic, basically by product, by sex, by age. These lives are permanently changed. I'm not going to even number. In closing, when a product causes this level of repeated harm, when manufacturers have full liability immunity, and when the product does not stop infection or transmission, there is no legal or moral basis to ever condition a person's entry, employment, education, or participation on taking it. Emergencies do not suspend civil rights. If anything, emergencies are when we must protect them most. I respectfully urge you to advance S539 and affirm a fundamental principle that the body of a free citizen belongs to the individual, not the state. And if I may add, in 1976, what is the flu? The Spanish flu? Not the Spanish flu, the swine flu. There were 50 deaths, and they stopped the vaccine. 50. With this vaccine, over 30,000. That's data. That's science.
All these spikes are.
Thank you.
Okay? That's data.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? Thank you for your time. Oh, go ahead, Senator. Oh, okay.
I just want to take a picture of it. I couldn't see it.
Of the chart, okay.
I can email this to you as well.
Yeah, if you could mail it to the committee, that'd be great.
I'd like a picture.
Thank you very much. Our next person who signed up is John Bowden.
I'll just leave this here with you.
Thank you. Mr. Bowden, thank you for your patience, because I know you've been here since the beginning. Yeah. And go right ahead.
Thank you, much appreciated.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you. Go right ahead, sir.
Okay, my name is John Bowden. I live in Medfield. I have this book I wrote a couple of years ago. It's got an ISBN number. It'll be in the Library of Congress. It's a record of Massachusetts Department of Public Health. Before I get into this, a note about Trevor behind me. The number of PE, pulmonary embolism, excess deaths in the United States since the vaccine is 33,000. It's that one right there. 33,000. It's 700 in Massachusetts alone. It's known to be caused by the vaccine. What they don't talk about is that big one right there. You talk about pandemics, you want to be prepared. Right now, going on in Massachusetts, over 5,000 excess acute renal failure deaths in Massachusetts. Nobody talks about it. They don't know about it because they don't study it.
What did you say?
I have.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I couldn't hear what you said.
I'm sorry, there are 5,000 excess sudden kidney failure deaths in Massachusetts in the last 4 years since the vaccine, which is attributed both to hospital protocols and the vaccine. But, I don't have a lot of time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'll extend it for a few seconds.
Thank you. Okay, here's going to be the hard part for you to hear. You want to be prepared. Was the pandemic built upon fraud? All the statistics that are talked about. So I'm just going to go right into it. Medical examiners for Massachusetts, Julie Hull, Stephen Schwartz, Janice Gravetti, Kimberly Springer, Michelle Matthews, Robert Welton, and others committed felony fraud on death records. Blunt force trauma deaths, fentanyl overdose deaths, COVID vaccine deaths were labeled as COVID deaths, where COVID had no involvement in the death. They also purposely omitted COVID vaccine as a cause of death from records when they knew the vaccine absolutely caused the deaths. Children and adults, many. So I'm publicly accusing them of fraud. Will they sue me for defamation? You know what the best defense for defamation is? The truth. They can come and get me. This is a public hearing. Solomon Kizito was 62 years old. Diane Dubois, 60. Brianna McCarthy, 30. Eden McDonald, 17. All died involving thrombocytopenia or stroke in the first half of 2021. Thrombocytopenia and stroke are known to occur from COVID vaccines. It's an indisputable fact, plenty of papers out there. However, only Solomon's record was coded with Y59.0, which means viral vaccines. So nobody can track the deaths because it was only his. Except 3 years later, Brianna's record, they added it. 3 years later, after they told everybody she died from COVID, when she reacted to the vaccine in hours, she died from a stroke. And because these deaths were purposely not investigated for vaccine harm and brought to the attention of the public, Cassidy Baraka was 7 years old, got her vaccine, reacted in 5 minutes.
Go ahead, I'll extend it for a few seconds.
Thank you. Vomited for 8 to 10 hours. Then she got a second vaccine, terrible abdominal pain, and she died at 7 years old from her second COVID shot. And the only thing on her death record in Part 1 says she died from COVID. Everybody can look this up. You can try me for felony, whatever. This is all the truth. Ian Shoemaker was 11 years old. Amaya McDonough Rocha was 12 years old. Cerebellar tonsillar and bilateral uncal herniation stroke in a 12-year-old girl. I hope doctors would understand what a cerebellar tonsillar and bilateral uncal herniation is in a 12-year-old. She got 4 vaccines on August 3rd, 2022. Meningococcal, Tdap, her third COVID shot, and HPV. She reacted and died from a stroke in that month. So these are all facts in the record in Massachusetts. So you have a legal duty to act to investigate the department. Every one of you has that legal duty. You took this job. And if you don't investigate it to find out that what I'm saying is true, and they committed felony fraud as a matter of custom and practice in Massachusetts, overinflating COVID deaths and hiding vaccine deaths. Okay, thank you. I see you're ready for me to finish.
I'm just trying to respect other people who are
Yep,
waiting.
appreciate it.
I appreciate that, though. If you want to submit written testimony as well, you can.
Will do.
As well. Thank you, sir. Anyone have any questions or comments? Yes, Representative Badger.
Hi, thank you for your testimony. I guess, I'm no medical expert, I don't have any background. So my question is, how do you make that how do you say that something is from the vaccine? Like, what is the science behind that, where you make that determination that it's COVID and not a pre-existing condition or anything else like that?
because on many of these records, like Diane Dubois, it said she died from acute intracranial hemorrhage in the setting of thrombocytopenia in a person recently vaccinated. It was sworn
What does that
to,
mean? I'm
excuse me,
sorry.
I'm not done. It was sworn to by the medical examiner on the record. And yet the CDC, when it goes through their software, Transact and Acme, it's supposed to spit out the code Y59.0, which it probably did. The CDC's been deleting them and hiding the records from the people. And I alerted the medical examiner and the Attorney General and everybody in Massachusetts. They didn't fix the records. And I have numerous ones where they're expressly stated the vaccine killed these people. And I have a list of them. I'm available to any of you guys. And I'm sorry if I seem angry. I'm pretty angry.
Right.
You know, I am angry. But I'm available to talk to any of you. No one has done more research in the world than what I've done for Massachusetts. I have all the death records, non-redacted, in Massachusetts from 2015 through 2024. It's the biggest study you can even imagine. There is no the science, okay? There's no definite article you put in front of science. I can talk statistics, I can lecture for 8 hours. There's 150 videos of me giving interviews. I've got 150 articles, I've written 2 books. More people know me in Australia than know me in Massachusetts. If you want the truth, just come and talk to me. Sorry, you want to finish that question?
No, I just didn't know when you said died from whatever the number of strings of words that you used. I need that in like layman's terms. I don't know what all those words meant that person died from.
Like thrombocytopenia, low platelet count, so they're going to bleed. But the problem with that, with TTS, is thrombosis with thrombocytopenia syndrome. You're both bleeding and clotting. And, you know, I could argue or debate with any medical professional here where it begins, and we don't want to talk about hematopoietic stem cells and how they're differentiated into platelets, red cells, white cells, and why there's a problem from the mRNA injection because it's got a nuclear targeting sequence. All that science stuff goes over your heads. I get it. But the reality is these people died from the vaccine. They were certified on the records as having died from the vaccine, and it was hidden by removing the Y59.0 code, which means death from viral vaccines. So it's being hidden from the public. So with the fraud that I'm accusing, what good are all your statistics? You got to straighten out your house first.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Not seeing any. Thank you very much for your testimony.
All right. Thank you to the committee for hearing us today. My name is Laurie McLeod. I am a member of the Health Rights Mass Advocacy Group. I am speaking today in support of Bill S539. This bill is essential to ensure that the people of Massachusetts are never again required to take an experimental liability-free pharmaceutical product in order to keep their jobs, attend school, and participate in society. No individual in a free state should have to choose between their bodily autonomy and their basic rights. To support the statements I'm about to make, I will be submitting references in my written testimony. First, substantial evidence shows that DNA, RNA-based injections like the COVID-19 vaccine are ineffective at preventing infection, transmission, severe illness, hospitalization, or death. Second, these injections are linked to widespread and severe adverse events, including thousands of documented injuries and deaths. Third, numerous health organizations, physicians, and international governments have called for a moratorium on mRNA products, citing serious safety concerns and lack of proven efficacy. Fourth, the Florida Surgeon General, Harvard-educated Joseph Ladapo, advises against our mRNA COVID-19 vaccines for Floridians, citing risks like myocarditis, autoimmune disease, negative effectiveness, DNA integration, and contamination. Fifth, thanks to the work of Massachusetts researcher Kevin McKernan, COVID-19 injections have been found to contain dangerous levels of DNA contamination, exceeding FDA-permitted limits by more than 500 times, including SV40 cancer-linked sequences. Six, these injections pose potential genetic integration risks, which could threaten the integrity of the human genome. Seven, ingredients like lipid nanoparticles, PEG, SM102, and others are tied to toxicity, carcinogenicity, and harmful immune responses. And finally, 8, studies show bioaccumulation spike proteins and mRNA sequences in key organs, including the brain, heart, ovaries, placenta, and fetus, raising serious concerns about long-term effects. Please support S539. No one should ever be coerced into taking a medical product, especially one that has caused widespread injury, violated informed consent, and was imposed through fear and discrimination. Passing this bill is a critical first step toward restoring public trust, protecting bodily autonomy, and ensuring that the abuses of the COVID-19 era are never repeated in Massachusetts. Thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you for your patience and waiting as well. Anyone have any questions?
Yes.
No? Okay, thank you. You have a good day.
You do too. Thank you.
Thanks. Next up, we have Robin Makowski. I believe it's virtual.
Hello.
Hello there.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, afternoon. So my name is Robin Markowski. I'm from Saugus and testifying today in strong support of Bill S539, an act prohibiting COVID mRNA vaccination as a condition of entry. We cannot mandate these again. I'd like to take a minute to talk about the e-lots specifically, which were among the first to be distributed and accounted for 96 of the top 100 most lethal batches. Because I was working in assisted living at the time and had through the whole pandemic, rest of my life, I was mandated to take 2 of these from the e-lots. My first was associated with 50 deaths, 50. My second was associated with 142 deaths. And according to How Bad Is My Batch, which draws its numbers from VAERS, that's close to a total of 200 deaths among 2 lots. I thought the point of vaccinating was to save lives. Who were these 200 people that died? Because they believed what they were told by the government agencies and their own doctors. I'm here today to speak for them and for myself because I'm angry. I've been very injured by these things. I had been a cyclist for 40 years prior to getting this vaccine. After my booster, everything changed. I started having tremendous problems with my health, neurological issues. I can barely walk today. No doctor can figure out what's wrong with me. I'm angry that people were lied to because they listened to the safe and effective narrative, which turned out to be anything but. I'm angry that these experimental DNA and oncogenic contaminated injections remain on the market and are being given to infants and pregnant women. I'm angry that we're still being lied to. COVID was oversold, and I feel like I can speak to that because I was working, like I said, in assisted living, and we didn't have a single resident pass from COVID. They were treated with a lot of love and some antibiotics, and not a single one passed. So I don't feel vaccines were necessary, and I was never an anti-vaxxer. I took the flu vaccine every year. Now, I will never take another injection. These hastily thrown together injections have ruined my health, and I have suffered both physically and mentally due to bad policy. Please, I ask you to support Bill S539. This can never happen again, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Anyone here have any questions, comments? Great. Not seeing any, we thank you, and you have a good day. Next, next on the list is Daniel Seitz, virtually. Daniel, did I say your name correctly?
Yeah, it's Seitz. Thank you.
You're welcome. Go right ahead.
Great. Thank you for this opportunity to testify in support of S539. My name is Daniel Seitz, and I'm with the Health Rights MA Advocacy Organization. There are 2 reasons why this legislation is essential to our individual and collective health and well-being. One reason is moral, ethical, religious, and the other is pragmatic. But before I address these reasons, it's important to note that the issue of health freedom is not a left-right issue, as the corporate media tries to paint it. We all have human bodies that are susceptible to the same illnesses and challenges. The media tries to spin health freedom as a political issue to divert our attention from the fundamental questions. Do and did the experimental COVID vaccines and related mandates help or hurt people? And does anyone or any government entity or private business even have a moral or ethical or religious right to force medical procedures on individuals? Dr. Joseph Lapido, MD, PhD, the Surgeon General of Florida, succinctly made the ethical point when he stated, "Who am I as a government or anyone else, or who am I as a man standing here now to tell you what to do with your body?" This is the same idea as encapsulated in the phrase, "my body, my choice." And the question of a pragmatism of the government dictating our medical procedures was stated cogently by Thomas Jefferson, who said, "Was the government to prescribe to us our medicine and diet, our bodies would be in such keeping as our souls are now." This simply means that government entities and officials lack the knowledge, wisdom, and objectivity to impose medical interventions without doing more harm than good, which became abundantly clear in the case of the COVID mandates in Massachusetts. Interestingly, by March of 2020, one of the world's leading biostatisticians, Dr. Ioannidis of Stanford University, showed that only the very elderly and people with serious comorbidities were at serious risk due to COVID. There was never a reason to shut down businesses, schools, and normal human activities in Massachusetts. There was, in fact, never a statewide emergency. But the shutdowns led to millions losing their jobs around the country, businesses going bankrupt, soaring inflation with food and housing insecurity, increases in suicide and drug addiction, suppression of civil liberties, deaths due to preventable and treatable illnesses that went untreated because of hospital and clinic closures, and valuable social development and educational opportunities were for children and young people were lost. But that's just the beginning of the horror show. Research studies have shown that there have been vast harms associated with the experimental shots. Overall, significant increases in excess deaths, significant increases in cancers in general, increases in spontaneous abortions, stillbirths, and in infertility, and increases in myocarditis and heart attacks. Just a couple more sentences here. The irony is that the experimental COVID shots did not stop transmission of the disease, and the drug companies knew that was the case right from the start. Trust in public health is at an all-time low. It's now time for the Massachusetts legislature to fully respect individual medical freedom and autonomy by adopting this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Anyone on the committee have any questions? Comments? No. Thank you for your testimony, sir, and you have a good day.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, another virtual, is Kristen Beatty. Kristen? Yes, welcome.
Yeah,
Go right ahead.
Okay. So the COVID vaccine was fast-tracked at the warp speed by Trump without even the basic testing. Yet even so, the criticism was censored and scorned despite historical research that showed that viral vaccines impaired immunity on viruses in the long term. In addition, mRNA vaccines introduce new technologies like genetic engineering into the vaccine, and just that alone deserves extensive research. The push to vaccinate ignores that pharmaceuticals historically only care about profits and cover up harm, and yet now all these pharma companies are elevated just like a sacred cow. Vaccines are not, they have never been perfect, they have historic failures, and that's the whole reason that we have a vaccine court to pay out for harm. Even though it doesn't work, it's not independent. There is a lot of propaganda around vaccines to normalize the idea that vaccines are for the greater good, and so it's okay if we have sacrificial lambs. For me, in my whole life, I've never thought it was okay to sacrifice a few people, especially to take away our freedoms as well. I've been a Democrat my whole life, and I can't believe that everyone is now believing these companies are just, we can trust them. So in terms of all the people who were harmed, I have a friend whose child had her legs, all the veins broke on her legs. She had like this blood under the skin, all the purpura. It looked horrible. And the thing is connected to the vaccines that was hidden undercover is that there was a risk of this problem with the veins that would be lifelong. And they talked about it in the media, and they said that it's A-okay, it's nothing, they're able to improve it. And I looked online, I looked at the research on it, and it said that people that have that, they don't recover, they have it their whole life, and they die in a few years. In terms of the liberties that were removed, there was tracking, and that was normalized. The idea that we should all have to take medication, even if it isn't tested, the slander that occurred, the idea that we're not supposed to have ideas or criticisms, or that people are crazy if they have harm, the idea that the authorities can change their mind and say the vaccine is supposed to be perfect, and then it isn't perfect, and that it's okay if they do that, it isn't okay if anyone else does. So anyway, the whole idea of targeting people who raise criticism, that's not American, that's not right, it's wrong. And to have the mandate, that's a very dangerous thing, because historically, that's how we've targeted people. There have been people in the past, the minorities, the poor, they have been called crazy, they have been sterilized, they have been put into facilities to be treated through electroshock, through lobotomy, through experimentation of drugs. We do not want to have a mandate where pharmaceuticals can decide. So anyway, that's all I have to tell you.
Thank you very much.
Have a nice day.
Thank you. Anyone have questions? Thank you. Anyone have questions or comments? Nope. Not seeing any. I want to thank you for your time. Next up is also another virtual is Pamela Goodwin.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you. Go right ahead.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'm testifying in support of the bill S539. I am 77-year-old retired teacher and certified nurse assistant. I'm a grandmother of 6 kids. In 2022, CVS contracted with Shawkett, the owner of this HUD-funded building out in Greenfield, Mass. It's Western Mass to you Easterners. And we weren't told anything except get down there and get your free shot. The only paperwork we got, you would have to take back home afterwards and read it. Again, they came back in, all free. CVS ran right over here, gave us the booster for that. I was refused all contact with a grandchild who was at that time 3 and 6. They lived nearby, but their mother was a bit neurotic about the virus in the healthcare industry. So I was denied any access. I was told they had a bubble. That turned out to be absolutely untrue because Grampy was running around all over the territory. I later went out, I had a lumpectomy on my birthday in an empty hospital because I was grateful that it wasn't a breathing problem because we were all told you don't go to the hospital unless you can't breathe. So I was grateful for that. I returned to my alma mater college out in Nebraska, came back from that and was told again, oh, we don't want you near the kids. So I would confer with my medical professional, whom I dearly love. She was always telling me, don't let anybody shame you into getting shots. She still listens at length to me. And I'm going to talk about a few of my close friends since they cannot be here. Susan and Ed Duval of Orange, Mass. were given a medical waiver exemption for religious things. And then later, both she and her husband lost their jobs because they refused the shot. He is very susceptible to all kinds of things because of an egg white problem, and he probably would have been very sick. So they lost their jobs, they are homeowners, and you've heard testimony about that was constantly. My Bible study leader lives in Framingham. She's on Zoom now with us because one moved to Texas, but we've been involved from the beginning at a church. She knew she was going to be deathly ill if she ever had the shot. She did a whole lot of research on her own and never got the shot and was fine. Stephanie Duclos had a grandson. He couldn't get his football scholarship without getting the jab. I refused to call it a vaccine because it was never that. I could give you a list of 3 or 4 other people.
I'd ask you to wrap up if you don't mind, please.
I'm going to say that the mayor has appointed me to work in the warming center so we don't have people that are unhoused freeze. It's a warming center, and we have never asked them for any medical information. I will not be volunteering there because I will not go and get another shot for this purpose. And it's anonymous. And we're keeping these people who don't have any place to keep their medical record on them. They barely have one backpack. So if there's going to be a mandate coming down with the next time we have a virus, I simply weathered it with a normal fever, felt better 2 days later, and I was so-called vaccinated. So I think it's a shame that you guys would think we need this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Anyone have any comments or questions on the committee?